Thanks for staying with us. This week on Marketplace 101, we speak with Derrick Villeneuve, Director of Strategy at Davyn, a certified Microsoft Enterprise Resource Planning partner, about customer relationship management and its importance to business. Tell me about Davyn.
All right, well, we've been in business since 2000, so we've been in Trinidad for 13 years now. The company originally started in Canada, decided to open an office here. We're unique in the territory in that we're very focused on just application business solutions. So what that means is, we don't really do infrastructure type work, the hardware and stuff like that. We're focused on is business applications that help you run your business better. So we have companies like Blue Waters as customers. So everything that they do to manage inventory, sell products, buy raw materials, manage their manufacturing is all done with our software. Deco is another one of our customers. They use the same application for payroll, human resource management, and financials. We have another customer, Smith Robertson, that uses Office 365 for all of their employee email, and the management uses it for collaboration purposes.
Are all your solutions cloud-based?
No, we have a mix of on-premise solutions and cloud-based solutions. So it really depends on what our customers are looking for.
You mentioned Office 365. Can you tell me about that a bit more?
Sure. Office 365 is a cloud-based solution. It's actually really got 4 components to it. One is Office, so Word, Excel, those applications that most people are familiar with using. You can get that with Office 365. It has an email component to it, which is enterprise grade. It also has a communication component to it called Link. So if you think of MSN Messenger, where you're texting with your friends, it's similar to that, except it's for business. It looks at your calendar to tell if you're free or you're busy. And it also has a voice component, like Skype, for example. You can use it to communicate with other employees in other locations. And finally, it has a component called SharePoint, which is most often used for document management, but SharePoint has a range of functionality. You can use it to publish electronic forms. For example, internally, we use it for all of our vacation requests. So employees would go in there, put a request in, the manager would get an email and approve it, and that can all be done in SharePoint.
What is cloud computing?
Cloud computing is a way of providing business applications to business without requiring hardware to install it on and people to manage those applications internally.
How does it work?
Well, there are companies out there like Microsoft. We're a Microsoft partner, and what they've done is they've created these data centers, really just large complexes full of computers, and they have specialists that monitor that stuff around the clock, 24/7. They're in secure environments, they're redundant, and by that I mean there's more than one data center that would house the data. So if you think about it, these organizations they're in the business of trust. They're selling a service, and customers need to trust them with their data. So it's very important that it's secure and that nothing's going to happen to it once you put it up there.
Speaking of trust, can we be absolutely sure that nobody is going to steal my data if I store it on the cloud?
Well, I've never heard of that happening, at least with any of the providers that we work with. There's always risk in anything you do, and if you're looking at an application and you're housing data in your business, somebody could break into your business and steal those computers. They could hack into your business and take your data. I would challenge you and say, do you think your software would be more secure on premise in a business environment here in Trinidad, or would it be more secure in a data center protected with around-the-clock security, monitored by experts in the field that are in the business of making sure nobody's going to get in there and take that data? So, I know there are people who have perhaps issues with putting things in the cloud, but I think generally those are perception issues. The reality is your software's probably safer there than it is anywhere on premise in most locations.
What about access? We lose electricity off and on here in Trinidad and Tobago. No internet access, no access to your data? That
is correct, yeah. So a couple workarounds there. One is, I use Blink on the go, and I think a lot of people here do. So, that can be a fallback for internet connection if your main line goes down. Oftentimes, the applications you're using in the cloud are not mission-critical applications. If you really need an application to be up 24/7, you can't afford to have it go down even 2 or 3 hours, then perhaps that's not something you should be putting in the cloud. But generally, things like email and document repositories, even CRM, for example, customer relationship management, there's a cloud component of that. Those are applications that, in the odd chance that it goes down for a couple hours, you could live without it. You could wait, and when it comes back available, you would just begin using it again.
So what applications would you not recommend for the cloud?
Well, if you had an application, for example, that you used to process sales orders, where you had customers coming in and you needed to have that up all the time. Somebody's got to be able to come in, they need to be able to buy something, you need to be able to take that out of inventory. That, it's an enterprise resource application. That's probably not something you want to put in the cloud. Although there are companies that do that as well. It's just a matter of what is your tolerance for risk.
Risk tolerance,
yeah.
Interesting. What about integration with other applications? What if I want to migrate from one vendor to another? What happens to my data?
Well, if you're on one cloud application, for example, and you want to move to a different cloud application with that same data, that's typically a challenge. But it's no more a challenge than if you're using an application on premise and you want to switch to a different application. You've got to get your data out of that first one and get it into the second one, and there could be some training and re-implementation that you need to do there. So I don't think that's unique to cloud. I think that's just, it's just part of making good decisions around what applications you want to deploy for your business.
Some people argue that cloud computing is more cost effective, others say it's not. What is it really? Is it that there's a certain type of business that is ideally suited for using the cloud?
It depends on the cloud application, and you need to do the numbers. So, for example, there are monthly fees for cloud applications typically, and what you need to do is, let's say you take that over 2 years. If CRM Online, for example, is $44 US a month in over 2 years, you can figure out roughly what that costs. This is probably around $900. And then you compare that to what would happen if you actually deploy that on premise over those 2 years. Well, first of all, you'd have to buy a server. You'd probably have to pay an individual to set that hardware up. There could be firewall issues with it, so you need to pay an expert to deal with that. And then you still have to buy the application, which is about $1,000 a user. So typically, what you'll find is that your payback on that it's well over the 2-year mark. And generally, if you're looking at an IT investment and you can't get payback within 3 years, it's probably not a good decision.
Let's talk about CRM. What is customer relationship management?
Well, you just said it. It's managing the relationship you have with your customers. It's really about trying to improve the way you deal with customers so you can retain them, right? You don't want your customers going somewhere else. It's much easier to keep an existing customer happy than to try to win a new one. And it's also managing that relationship. It's improving your response time. It's trying to improve how you sell to them. So improving your sales methodology so you track certain activities that your sales reps are doing in your business so you know what works and what doesn't work. It also encompasses marketing as well and how you touch the customers in various ways and what works and what doesn't. So at the end of the day for your business, it's about improving your profitability or selling more. But the way you do that is by having happy customers and being able to communicate with them in a way they want to be communicated with.
And how does your software help achieve that?
Well, it has a range of tools in there for tracking the communication. So anything that you do with a customer, you want to be able to keep a record of that. And then you want to be able to run reporting against that over time. So, I can see this email here, how effective was it versus a different email, marketing that I did. The other thing is that, if you're a sales rep or maybe you're an account manager and you're dealing with a customer and you're keeping that up to date and you decide to leave, or maybe you get sick and you're not available, when that customer calls, anybody else in the organization can go in there and see what you did with that customer and be able to pick up that conversation where you left off, which is important. We've all been on the phone with somebody that we're calling, we're trying to get service from, and then, they don't remember the last 3 conversations you had with them. That's an annoying situation. Nobody wants to, deal with that.
How affordable is CRM software? Is it something that small businesses can use?
Yes, absolutely. Anything from a single individual running their own business to, you know, a few employees, if you will. It's $44 a user a month, you know, per individual who's using it. So it's roughly about, you know, just under $500 US a year. So you have to weigh that against, you know, that cost against the benefit, which is any investment you're going to make, you need to do that. The benefit of CRM is even as a small business, it gives you tools to be able to touch many customers, you know, easily, right? So if, instead of manually managing the emails, for example, you can create marketing lists in there, and you can track, you know, many contacts, and then send emails out to lots of them, and then track what works and what doesn't. It's a way that you can sell to a lot more people, right? There are people who've gotten wealthy by leveraging the tools like, you know, the internet and online capabilities and things like CRM to communicate with many people all at once.
Let's talk about the ethics of CRM.
Sure.
You mentioned that, you know, I may be dealing with a particular customer, but I'm not in office that day, but somebody else can get access to my customer's data.
Mm-hmm. Somebody else can get access to, well...
Another employee.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
Well, there is security in the application. So the first thing you have to remember is that depending on how you set it up, you decide who has access to what. So if that individual or that employee, your colleague, let's say, if they were set up in a way that they had access to those customers that you deal with, then they would be able to see them. But if you decided when you set the application up that that person shouldn't see your customers, then you would set it up that way. So it's really your choice on how you want that to work and who you want to be able to see what.
And Microsoft Dynamics CRM offers all those features and facilities.
It does.
Okay.
The email contains some basic details about the lead. In order to decide which salesperson to assign the lead to, she decides to review her sales dashboard in Dynamics CRM 2011.